Today is October 20th, 2017. The time is 10:04, and this is a special meeting of the members of the New York State Liquor Authority. Present today in Albany are Chairman Bradley, Commissioner Ford, and Deputy Commissioner of Licensing Held. Present in New York City is General Counsel Riano. There are two items on the calendar today. Both are requests for emergency summary suspensions from Counsel's office. First item, 2417G, Tomatoes of LI Corp. With that said, I'll turn it over to Counsel Riano.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Very quickly, this is a request for summary suspension for Tomatoes of LI Corp. doing business as Lounge Las Vegas at 39 Surrey Circle in Shirley, New York, 11967. This came to our attention in Counsel's office due to an inspection that occurred on Sunday, October 15, 2017. And during this inspection, there was a number of different issues that arose. And in addition to questions that arise from the fact that the individuals that our investigators spoke to noted that they've been working there for many years, that there has not been a kitchen for over 7 years, that there's no food prep area, and that there's a number of employees that are not working on the books of this particular establishment. And in addition to that, questions that surrounded a number of security guards. The primary concern that my office had is the fact that this place was overcrowded by about 304 people, and there were severe structural problems in the actual space of this building. Primarily, the concern that we have, obviously, as you can see from the memo, is the fact that the basement seemed to be rusted and rotting, which means that the bar above could possibly fall through from the floor. And obviously, if you have an overcrowding situation, that could lead to a number of very serious injuries of people that would be within the particular establishment. This is in addition to an unsafe staircase in the basement, trip hazards in public areas, and various other electrical hazards. This is only the latest issue that we've had here at this particular establishment. I believe, if I remember correctly, looking at the history, there have been 38 calls over the course of the last 24 months, including 10 calls for physical assaults. Recently, one of those calls was even regarding a male who was assaulted with a machete that caused a head wound and a fractured skull. Looking at this from the perspective of why this has become a focal point for police attention, we have incidents and violent incidents on May 20th, 2017 for an assault, March 26th, 2017, where there was an altercation. That was the machete altercation. There is the March 4th, 2016 incident where an intoxicated male was leaving the bar trying to drive. December 10th, 2016, an assault where somebody was bleeding from the mouth and unconscious. December 4th, 2016, somebody threw a brick through the front door. November 14th, 2016, with a severely intoxicated male when the police were called. October 2nd, 2016, for a disturbance. So I think the memo actually pretty accurately describes the situation we have at this particular establishment and the reasons that we have concern. But obviously, you can imagine that as of the inspection from this past weekend, when we see that there's an establishment that's overcrowded and the floor is rotting away, that brings us to a point where we're concerned about the health, safety, and welfare of the people that are in this particular establishment. And at that point, I believe it becomes imperative that the authority act in order to ensure that this place can no longer traffic in alcoholic beverages.
And a cease and desist order has been issued by both the fire and building departments. Is that correct, Counsel?
That's my understanding, correct.
It looks like they never had certificate of occupancy. And I realize this was not done when you or I were here. This is 2010. That must have been the winning question.
Please begin assembling at the nearest exit stairway. Fire wardens, please contact the fire command station via the emergency water phone when everyone is assembled. Thank you.
Okay.
I believe that.
Yeah, you can continue. Go ahead.
Okay. Going back over this ad, it's currently licensed under 39 Surrey. It also goes back to like the 70s under 3943. And it appears since the past 20 years, we've had 6 different licensees in the establishment, and they've all used the same certificate of occupancy that goes back to that.
So when it was revoked, we never found out about it. Okay. I have no other questions.
Should we vote here?
Can you hear us, Chris?
Unfortunately, I cannot. It's too loud.
All right. Donald, why don't you just delay it for now? Pause it, and we'll come back.
We're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So I'll go back to my question, because I obviously didn't hear it, was the fact that it appears from your memo that this place never had the proper permits from the town, and I was in 2010 when it got licensed, so I'm wondering how it got licensed, and Deputy Commissioner Held was just answering me when your fire alarm went off.
Okay.
So why don't you repeat that answer?
Oh, I'll start it. Let me figure where I started. Going through the history of the premise, its address is also known as 3943 Surrey, and it's been on and off licensed, I'd say for 6 different licensees in the past 20 years. Although it was requested by the examiner, the licensing board member missed it. However, on every other application, there was a certificate of occupancy submitted, but they're kept using the same one from March of 1974. So there was one way back, but it was missed in this application. They did provide a copy of an application for a public assembly permit, but the copy we have does not show that it was executed or approved by the town.
So, in summary, it appears that not only should this place not be licensed now, but back in 2010, it should never have been licensed, which is, no one made that decision here, but, so I have no further questions. Commissioner?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm ready to vote. Looks like Brookhaven Fire Marshal, 4 serious violations, the building inspector, 8 serious violations, Suffolk County Health Department, 8 serious violations, cease and desist orders, ordering closure by both the fire and building departments, including the lack of a public assembly permit or valid certificate of occupancy. No food. Kitchen was removed 7 years ago, so that's about the same time they were licensed, so it looks like they've never had it. As you mentioned earlier, Council, 38 calls within the past 24 months requiring police assistance, including recently a patron assaulted with a machete. So it's without a doubt this establishment is a threat to the safety of the public, and I vote summarily suspend.
I'm going to vote to summarily suspend on the same grounds. It's obvious that this is a threat to the public safety, health, and welfare in several different areas that Commissioner Ford just hit pretty much every one of them. So I'll vote to summarily suspend.
Okay, the second item is 2417H, BGL LLC.
Good. So BGL LLC doing business as Avanti at 272 Post Avenue in Westboro, New York, 11590. This comes before us today, obviously, because on Saturday, October 14th at 2017, at about 3:40 in the morning, there was a 911 call at this location, and a number of situations then presented themselves to the police department. There was a victim who was lying, bleeding profusely from the back of his head on the sidewalk directly in front of the establishment. Upon further investigation, this disturbance seems to have started within inside the establishment, where the patron was struck on the back of his head with a bottle. However, this was only the start of what turned out to be quite a set of egregious events. The security guard who was there at the time had been seriously injured and slashed in his face, and eventually I believe he required about 20 stitches in order to stitch his face back up. And while at the scene, the police received a call that another patron from the same establishment was at the hospital with a gunshot wound to his chest. This is just from one day, one morning from this past weekend. And just 2 weeks ago on September 30th, at about 4 in the morning, Nassau County Police have responded to the same location, shots fired, and it looks like at least 2 people were hit by the shots that were fired. It looks like 3 to 4 gunshots may have been fired at various patrons at this establishment. A cease and desist order has been issued by the Village of Westbury, but at the same time, this has become a focal point for police attention. We have incidents on October 13th of extremely loud music. October 8th, again, with somebody walking around the front of the premises with a gun. You can go all the way back to April 22nd when it looks like there was a larceny in the premises. And actually, you can look at the adverse history, and it's pretty incredible. This is not the first time that we seem to have these incidents. There's been incidents where employees have assaulted customers and issues with their permits and licenses before. Obviously, the primary concern that we have here in Council's office is the fact that within essentially 2 weeks, I've got many victims, gunshots, slashings, The security is even being injured. Patrons are being injured. There comes a point where obviously the health, safety, and welfare of the public is at stake, and this place has clearly displayed that in a very short period of time.
So we have instances of 2 fights beginning inside the establishment and rolling out into the street. Is that correct? That's what I'm seeing?
It looks like at least we have
At least
incidents
2.
where things are starting inside, outside. I mean, this place has become a focal point for issues, but through the pattern of violence that we seem to have here.
The Village of Westbury issued a cease and desist order. It says prohibiting them from operating as a nightclub cabaret in the village. Additionally, this order prohibits the licensee from using the premises in any fashion until further notice. Is that further notice from the village?
I believe it would be from the village, yes, Commissioner. Mhm.
Okay.
Is that as a result of the shootings?
I would have to assume so, Chairman. It looks like it was issued on October 14th, which would be the same Saturday where we have the person hit on the back of the head, the person who was the security guard who was slashed in the face, and the shooting, the most recent shooting, excuse me.
Can we, regardless of the decision here, can we contact the police department and make sure there's nothing else that we didn't receive as far as a referral?
We absolutely can. It's my understanding that Associate General Counsel Alvarado has actually been in touch with the very highest levels of the police department in regard to this establishment.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Based on the fighting, people being shot, slashed with razor blades, not to mention that the establishment has been shut down by the village, so they're not even allowed to do business for any reason right now. The unauthorized trade name seems to be the least of their issues, but nonetheless, this place is without a doubt a threat to the public safety, so I vote to summarily suspend.
I'm going to vote to summarily suspend as well. There's regular occurrences of disorderly conduct at the premises. There's random shots being fired in a residential neighborhood, and it's obvious that these operators have a complete lack of the ability to supervise this establishment, so I'm going to vote to summarily suspend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.